Brew Nation, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, share. Really means a lot to me. I got asked a question on LinkedIn about a site that is in a specific city, and they have about 20 to 25 studies going on every year. They're a fairly big site, and they've gotten into their first SMO type of agreement with a clinic in their city, where it sounds like they're going to start doing some inpatient overnight studies and possibly a potential for other kind of studies. So they're asking me how to go about doing this. They asked for a checklist. Maybe somebody can make a checklist or have something better. The way I see this, the first rule is don't overcomplicate things. So I kind of do this with my own site here in Yuma. I have 5 different PIs and 4 different LLCs. So basically one LLC for each PI and then one that's like the parent company. So this way I give each doctor ownership in their studies that they do. Like they have equity in the actual company, but it all leads up to the parent company. This might be a consideration for you guys as well, is to create another entity for this research clinic, or it sounds like you don't need to do that, and you can just pay them or pay the clinic like as an independent contractor. That's fine too. It's all about your SOPs. What do your SOPs say? You probably need to add a section in your SOP about working with other clinics, outside of the main site. And I wrote a very simple note to file that is in our Creo, and we use Creo for everything. So if I were in your situation and I was making an SMO style agreement with this other clinic, I would actually put their studies in Creo as well, and you can add PIs. You can have as many PIs as you want in Creo and as many staff members as you want. But I would put a note to file in the e-regulatory system that says, hey, whatever your parent company is or whatever the main mothership company is, let's say it's called Yuma Clinical Trials. Yuma Clinical Trials employs all research staff. We share the same SOPs. In your case, maybe you share the same contract and budget. If not, don't put that there, like we don't. So I actually clarify contract and budgets are negotiated at the individual entity level. But whatever your situation actually is, have a simple note to file that explains this. So when the sponsors start asking, you just show them this and say, hey, this is how we're running. This is how we're structuring the studies. Now, you might want to consider having 2 sites on the 1572. If the rule of thumb is, if it's a separate PI, it's a new 1572. If you're sharing one PI amongst 2 locations, it's a satellite site. I'm assuming this SMO style agreement with this other clinic, it has their own PI and everything. So in that case, that's perfect. The only question is, do you have an entity name, or are you going to continue using your parent company name? That's fine. That's an internal decision for you guys to figure out. The other thing is, do you want your other site as a satellite site? And there are many reasons why you might want to do this. There might be more storage space at the other site. There might be more monitoring space at the other site. There might be a more secured investigational product environment at the other site. And even if you don't know what the benefits are of having that other location on the 1572, I still go out of my way and put it down in all my studies, just because you always want more options. And if the monitors ever ask, say, well, we have extra storage space or we have extra monitoring space, they typically ask questions like, will patients be seen there? And if the answer to that is, then it's purely an administrative decision. If the answer is yes, then you kind of have to have both locations on the 1572. Another thing that will come up is the CLIA waiver. Most sites of your size have a CLIA waiver like mine. I would go ahead and get a CLIA waiver for that location as well. I'm assuming there's going to be blood drawn. Now, if they already have one, perfect. You don't actually need to do anything. You just need to write a note to file whoever their doctor is, we have a CLIA waiver. That's for this study, and we also have a CLIA waiver at our other location. This is why it might be best to have both locations on your 1572. Another thing is the training. So if you are going to be using any of their staff for studies, which it sounds like this person will, because they mentioned a nurse, they mentioned a couple of their MAs, and maybe some other of that clinic staff. You need everyone to have GCP minimum. You need whoever is going to be handling blood samples to have an IATA, and you're going to need to have them sign the SOPs, that they're aware of your company policies, even though they're not a part of your company. For the purposes of doing research, they are. You may not need to give them your own company emails, but you can argue either way for this. Frugal, and for one, and number two, people are less compliant when they have to check an email that's not really their main gig. Like, it sounds like this clinic, they have their own thing going on, and research is just kind of like a second thing they're thinking of, or maybe like a third thing they're doing. You don't want to run the risk of them not checking their email because they only work for you like 5 hours a week. So they're going to miss important emails. So that's the part where you might want to give them, like, have them use their personal emails or their current work emails. Now, just forewarn them, they're going to get bombarded with emails. Like, the first thing my PIs noticed when they started doing research with me is like, wow, like, why am I getting all these emails? Then we created a company email for them, and the complaints went away, but the compliance also suffers. So that's a trade-off. Contracts and budgets, again, if there's only one payee, there's no issue. If there's a separate entity involved and that's receiving the payment, so let's say you're working with Sanofi Aventis, right, for another study that you have at your old clinic, your original clinic, but now you get a new study with this group, and it's a new PI, and you actually created a new LLC, and there's a new payee, but the clinic is still operating under your SOPs. You might have to explain what's going on, and this is again why I created my note to file. I kind of have an SMO model, even though I don't like to call it that way, but I guess it technically is. So the rule of thumb is just don't overcomplicate things. These are, as far as I can think of, the more important things. It sounds like you're going to be seeing patients strictly there, which is great, but there's going to be issues with space or storage, so where you might need your other address as a location on the 1572. So that's really the main things. It's logistic, it's contracts and budgets, it's trainings, it's SOPs, it's CLIAs, it's AIDAs, GCPs, and then it's the actual, like, where the monitoring is going to be done and how your staff are working with their staff. And for the purposes of the study, they're going to have to be one and the same to the sponsor. So this is where the SOPs kind of connect both groups together. And you're going to figure it out as you start doing it, the challenges you're running into, and then you might have to start making things like IP transportation logs, and then you might have to have a new section in your SOP about transporting SOPs or maybe transporting patients, although maybe you won't need to do that.